Showtime. Welcome to the show. I'm Brent, Holland, and welcome, one and all. A very serious show tonight. I've been sitting here, folks, looking at my opening script for tonight, and I think I'm going to throw it away. Um, I had all these lofty things I was going to mention on the opening, but I think the direction I want to take this particular show in is of profound significance, especially for our listeners that are listening through the university systems and community radio systems. And that is the whole Western ideology's failures to get behind Israel and understand what's really happening. Essentially, folks, I'm going to show you tonight how the fight Israel is taking is the same as the fight that the Allies took against the Nazis. Our guest tonight is Yariv Mozer. He's an award-winning filmmaker, and he's gathered all the Hamas videos and has interviewed the survivors of the party, each one telling their own story. He has created a historic document and put it to a new documentary titled We Will Dance Again. This is a must-watch, folks, which is being broadcast on Paramount Plus in Canada. I'd like to welcome Yariv to the show from Israel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Very early morning in Israel, folks, and he's been very kind to get up early. And it's very early morning here in Canada as well, Kingston, Canada, where I'm broadcasting from. Can you take us 6:29 a.m. in the morning, October 7th, 2023. Can you just give us a brief synopsis?
Yeah. Unexpectedly, sirens, a barrage of rockets over Tel Aviv. Unfortunately, I'm experiencing the same situation over the last few days and in the last year. And I think people just don't understand what's the feeling of waking up in the morning with no warning from your bed and just running. I don't have a shelter in my old building in Tel Aviv. I'm just running to the staircase. That was exactly the feeling on that day, October 7, 2023. Immediately I opened television. I've started collecting information, starting to understand what's going on. The story evolved in front of my eyes as for many on television, and it was overwhelming. Nothing prepared us to what happened on that day. It was an invasion of thousands of Hamas terrorists into Israel after we had a relatively quiet period of time of ceasefire. I was starting to think from that moment of time, what should I do as a documentary filmmaker? I wanted to be somewhere on the ground. I have also my military experience, but it was, you couldn't just take your car and drive to the south of Israel. It was a closed military zone. There were terrorists all over. It was unwise to do so and impossible. So I started texting the IDF spokesperson who I know personally. I told him, look, documentary films will be out there, I know, at the end of everything, but this is what will remain in history. 2-3 days later, I was accompanied by a commando unit into the site of the Nova massacre. And I was one of the first ones to witness in my own eyes the remains of this massacre, which was horrific.
Folks, if you're just joining us, we're speaking to Yariv all the way from Israel. He's got a new documentary out on Paramount Plus in Canada, We Will Dance Again. Now, you had mentioned that you'd fought for the IDF. Now, folks, that was in the Artillery Corps in the Israel-Hezbollah war in 2006. Did that background in any way affect how you approached the project? Because you saw combat, you saw it up close and personal.
Yes, I did. And
how was this different? I'm trying to find out, how was this different, and how did this aid your approach to the documentary?
Although I experienced war and I saw the consequences of war, and war is a devastating thing for both sides. I'm always saying it. War is terrible. That's what we hear today about what's happening in Gaza and in Israel. That's the consequences of war, which people need to remember that Israel didn't start. But the massacre on that day it didn't compare to anything I've witnessed in my life. I mean, that was not the remains of a war. That was truly a massacre of terrorists. I went to those shelters that were scattered next to the roads, where people were supposed to get protection from missiles. But at that situation, they were like trapped in a place, just waiting for the terrorists to catch them, and they threw grenades into those shelters. And when I came there, the smell was terrible. There were still parts of bodies. This has nothing to do to the experience I've witnessed in wars.
Folks, when you live in Israel, imagine in Canada, we go to bus stops, and because we live in Canada, of course, there are shelters there, but they're covered by plexiglass glass. Basically, it's just enough to keep the wind off and keep you warm till the bus comes along. Not so in Israel. In Israel, you have a bomb shelter. You want to escape the rockets that are fired from Gaza, or as we know today, Hezbollah is firing them from Lebanon, to say nothing of the Houthis or Islamic Jihad or any other crazies that are over there that just want blood. And I can't put it, it's like the Nazis. The Hamas has the same doctrine as the Nazis: eliminate, exterminate every single Jew on the planet. And doesn't stop with Jews, by the way, folks. And you can look this up yourself. Google the Hamas doctrine. They want to take out the Rotary clubs, the Lions clubs, YMCAs. They're no fan of the YMCAs either. So if you're a member of these organizations, you're on the hit list too. There's no escaping this. This is truly a fight like the Allies faced in the 40s, 1939, against the Nazis. This is a war against extermination. Make no mistake on this. I live in Kingston. Queen's University is here. The kids go downtown. They have a party. They have fun. And they're just laughing. And all of a sudden, these terrorists show up en masse and just start shooting them. They have no way to defend themselves, so they run into these bus shelters, if you will, these bomb shelters.
Osama was living as a Bedouin. By the way, the Bedouins consider themselves Palestinians as well. They do have the Palestinian identity. They speak the same language. In fact, they are Bedouin tribes. Some of the tribes are located in Gaza. So they are family members. They know each other. And Osama lives with his family in a Bedouin city in the south of Israel. He was working in the villages surrounding the Israeli villages on the border with Gaza. And on that specific morning, he parked his car just like others next to this shelter, next to this bus stop, and went inside the shelter together with all the kids. He happened to be there. That was the only thing with his story. And he understood more quickly than those kids what is going to happen. When the terrorists arrived, he went outside, he tried to speak with them. He knew Arabic. He could try to convince them, but they humiliated him. They brutally attacked him and eventually killed him. They didn't differentiate on that day between Muslims, Jews, Christians. Anel Shapira unfortunately was a young, inspiring boy who decided bravely to pick up those grenades and throw them outside of the shelter. Just think of the courage you need to pick up a live grenade and send it outside. Now, what we found is the camera that was placed in Osama's car. So Osama's car had a vehicle camera that was on the dashboard that was still filming. Dash camera. Oh, yeah, thank you. So it was still filming from the outside. So you have those, some of the party goers were filming by themselves inside the shelter. And you can see at the same time from the outside of the shelter, the grenades being thrown outside. and being exploded. But the terrorists are keen to continue and throwing again live grenades inside. And I found survivors that were with Aner and could describe his courage by throwing, I think, 8 grenades until the last one exploded in his hands and killed him. But he managed to save so many in the back of the shelter. And next to him was Hirsch Goldberg Polin, who lost his hand during this explosion. And eventually what the terrorists did, they went inside, shot everyone, and picked up 4 people that were still alive and injured, like Hirsch, who lost his hand, and 3 others. And you can see it because Hamas used body cams and GoPro cameras to document what they're doing. So we have it on camera. We have this moment in which they kidnap Hirsch, his friends, put them on the car, on this truck, and beat them like dogs, like animals. And Hirsch, you can see from his face, he was terrified, shocked. At the same time, he couldn't hear anything because he had the beep in his ears from the explosions. So just to imagine what he had to go through. And of course, we know today that after 320 days, he was brutally murdered by Hamas in the tunnels of Gaza, which is horrific and tragic, and made us go into the editing room and change the film accordingly. This happened weeks ago, and it was one of the most devastating days in working on this film, because I really wanted to go back to the editing room and change the film when Hirsch will come back home. And that situation was so horrible, so sad for all of us doing this film.
And he was one of the 6 that was in the tunnel that was purposely shot in the head and murdered. We're dealing with Nazis, folks. So when you're marching down and you've got your little banner and it says, "From the river to the sea," remember who you're supporting. Remember and be aware of who you're supporting. You are supporting nothing short of the Nazis. When it says, internationalize the Intifada, that is a cry for the extermination of Jews. And as I said, the Hamas constitution right across the world. So when you're marching with all these guys and you're feeling great and you're marching down the street and look at me, that is who you are supporting. You are supporting the new Nazis in Hamas, Hezbollah, in the Houthis, and the Islamic Jihad, and Israel surrounded by crazies. And you're going to say, oh, Abbas. Well, Mr. Abbas, who runs the West Bank, happens to be a Holocaust denier. Go make peace with these guys. Hamas on one side, and of course, Abbas on the other side. You cannot do this. This is insanity, folks. This is a fight between good and evil, and don't mistake it. Now, how did you come to discern? I mean, I imagine the uphill battle you faced to put these graphic Hamas videos of the extermination of people in your video must have been almost unsurmountable. Talk about a hill. How did you have the chutzpah? How did you have the wherewithal to convince everybody that these videos need to be in there? And they do. These are like Holocaust videos, folks. Exact same thing. No difference.
Because when you're a documentary filmmaker, the one thing that interests you, and this is something that I take with me years back when I studied at Tel Aviv University, from the big ones in Israeli documentary filmmaking, you are keen to bring the truth in front of the eyes of your viewers. This is what documentary films is all about, the truth. And in order for people to stop denying what happened and believe conspiracies and everything, that is, you need to face the truth in front of your eyes. And the truth comes from both angles. One angle is the survivors. They witnessed those horrific moments. They even captured them with their own cell phones, as I described earlier, which is part of their generation. I mean, for me, it's hard to pick up my phone and do a selfie. But for them, in those moments of life and death, they held their phone. And they gave us the opportunity to understand how does it feel when you are in such a fear of your life. And at the same time, Hamas left Gaza, clicking record on their GoPro cameras. So you have files, video files of 20, 30 minutes, constantly ongoing, unedited. I insisted on translating the words that they are saying during this travel between Gaza to Israel. They were calling jihad, jihad. This was, as you were saying, war against Western society, Western values. This is jihad. They were enjoying bragging. They were transmitting those images live backwards to Gaza, to their families, to their friends. They were enjoying every moment. They were brutally calling those people dogs, humiliating them and then killing them in situations in which you can see, and that is the most horrific and hard moments in this film. And there are only 3 of those. I kept only 3, in which you can see a close range shoot in which a terrorist stands in front of a harmless girl who raises her hands. And this is exactly a moment from the Holocaust in which she begs for her life, and he takes the rifle and shoots her head. I mean, I was trained as a soldier in the Israeli IDF. You never train a soldier, never, in targeting and firing into the head of a harmless person. This doesn't exist, especially not a women and children. Of course, in war, there are casualties, especially when Hamas protects itself. And I've been talking with soldiers that came back from this war. Hamas protects himself behind civilians. So when you have a person targeting you with a missile or with an RPG, and he sits inside a kindergarten or a school, and you need to protect your 40 or 50, 60 soldiers, what are you supposed to do? But on that specific day of October 7, it was not a war. It was a complete terror massacre of lunatic people, and as you said, of evil itself.
Absolutely, folks. We're speaking with Yariv Mozer tonight. He's all the way from Israel. Very gracious of him to join us. He's got probably the most profound documentary I've ever watched in my life. I was in tears, folks. Imagine, if you will, if somebody had a camera back in the day of the Holocaust, the video camera on a telephone, and was able to sneak that into a gas chamber, awaiting whether it was actually going to be water coming out of the sprinklers or indeed gas. That's what is in this video. This is what makes it so essential. In the beginning, Etan, I think I have his name right, says, I'm searching for who I am going to be now. Are you indeed searching for who you're going to be now? Has it affected you that much?
You're comparing me to the survivors, and I'm in service of them.
No, it's not what I meant. I understand what you're saying. I didn't mean to make a comparison. I'm just asking you because this video, this documentary has changed me, which I think is the biggest goal of any documentary maker. But I feel this transcends that. I think it goes beyond this. This is showing the barbarity of humanity, like all the documentaries of the Holocaust we've seen. Have you been changed by this profound experience that you've gone through?
I think every Israeli since October 7 has been changed. I'm asking myself a lot of questions about the region I live in, about the people that we are facing, and what are the targets of Israel from now on. I do try to convince myself to still believe in peace and coexistence, and in the right moment of time, in which the people of Palestine will understand that Israel, as a Jewish and the one and only Jewish state in the world, will continue to exist, and nothing will stop or change or eliminate us. We will still be here. We are praying for every day in our prayers and everything is to have peace. And this is what I pray for my country and for this region and for the Middle East, because the potential is so big, so big.
Yeah, to live in peace and united and come together. We've already seen that in Israel proper, where you have Palestinians coming and doing mutual research with Israelis side by side, and the goals and gains that can be made. Now, I want to get this across again to university students. Yariv, what happens to gay people in Gaza?
You know, that's one character that I insisted in the last moments to include in the film, Netanel. Netanel was very, in Israel, you can be freely who you are, whatever you want to be, like in Canada. Netanel was with makeup and earrings. And when he faced the terror, when this terrorist held him in his hands, and he, miraculously, he fought back and ran away. But at that specific moment, he told me that the only thing he could think of, that this terrorist will see the background on his phone, the photograph of him naked, enjoying his body, and will understand that he's gay, and then will, of course, murder him, because we know the stories. I did a film more than 10 years ago called The Invisible Men.
That's right.
It's about gay Palestinians who ran away from their own society and from Hamas and Fatah. They ran into Israel, and this is where they hide because they are illegal Palestinians. Hamas do not share the values that we are fighting for in the West. All we achieved in hundreds of years, women's rights, gay rights, freedom of expression, freedom of art. You know, I had this joke.
Freedom of religion.
Freedom of religion.
Try to be a Christian in Gaza.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Don't worry. The Israeli military, the IDF, will not bomb the Gaza LGBT center because it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So,
right. Yeah.
And that's what people needs to understand. Gay people are being thrown from rooftops in Gaza, so people will understand how much a sin it is to be gay, to be homosexual in Gaza by the Hamas.
Yariv Mozer's joining us tonight, folks. We're talking about his Paramount Plus documentary, We Will Dance Again. Okay, now I'm going to throw a statistic at you, and I want your honest reply. 72% of Gazans to this day still believe what Hamas did on October 7th, 2023 was justified, was the right thing to do. How do you respond to that?
That is, I think you are, unfortunately, the percentage is lower than what you will face in reality.
That's what I thought too. Hamas took their cameras, documented everything. Now, this reminded me once again of the Nazis, where they were meticulous with the Holocaust records, absolutely meticulous. The difference being the Nazis tried to cover up their barbaric Holocaust camps by blowing up the gas chambers and trying to burn them all down. But Hamas does the opposite. They actually post this right to the internet. Can you make a comment on that?
Yeah, so the first thing that we did on the 7th of October and ongoing was to collect those images from Telegram. This is where Hamas has its channels, and they uploaded a lot of material. But as time went by, they understood that some of this material is affecting their image, which they tried to create internationally. So they took out those videos that they uploaded in the beginning. But we have everything. We collected all the footage from the very beginning. In those moments, they were bragging, they were enjoying to show their own people and the world their achievements. And I'm saying it, achievements. But for them, it was a huge victory. They succeeded in entering Israel, conquering bases and villages, and kidnapping 250 people, children, women, elderly people, and of course, massacring thousands of human beings, including sexual
Yes, rapes.
rapes and horrific things that they did on that day. And on that day, they were still posting those images to the world. Later on, they took it off, but we collected everything, and some of it is, of course, part of the film. I kept a lot outside of the film because otherwise, this film will not be people will not be able to watch it. And again, as you said, this is a Paramount Plus documentary. We want people to be able to watch it. I want those young people in the universities to be able to watch it.
Yes.
And I think that what they will see, those young students in universities, they will see themselves. They will see young people coming to party in a festival, a trance music festival that could have taken place in any other city in the world, anywhere. It happened to be in the south of Israel. But when they will hear the stories and they will hear the survivors, I think that they will imagine themselves in those situations. And I truly invite them to watch the documentary.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Now I'm going to ask you one final question, which is a question I ask every guest that comes on the show. You're literally speaking to every university across Canada, a community radio station. It's on television, and of course, YouTube and all the rest of those guys online. What would you say to the people?
I want to speak especially to those young people, the ones that I feel that are in the need to educate themselves a little bit more than what they hear on TikTok. And I beg them to teach themselves to go and research before shouting and supporting the wrong people.
There's an old saying, you are entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts. The facts are the facts, and that's truth. I want to thank you so much for coming on at this early morning hour. And
thank you, Brent. It's a big honor,
very,
really. Very much.
very important for me to do this show. And I can't tell you how elated I am that you honored me by coming on the show. And your documentary honors everybody that is still a hostage, those that have fallen both in the IDF and that were slaughtered that day. And you've honored yourself and your family. God bless you. It's
Thank you very much. Thank
very
you.
amazing. Folks, I'm Brent Holland from The Brent Holland Show. See you next time.